Imagine walking into your kitchen, grabbing a carton of milk, and checking the date before you pour it into your cereal. Now imagine tracing that tiny printed date back to one of the most notorious gangsters in American history. Yes, some say we have milk expiration dates because of Al Capone. It sounds absurd at first. This is the man who ruled Chicago during Prohibition, who made millions from bootlegging, who went to prison for tax evasion, who became the ultimate symbol of organized crime. Why would a man like that care about milk, the most wholesome product imaginable? To understand the story, we have to go back to the 1930s. Prohibition was ending. Bootlegging was no longer the cash machine it once was. Capone and his Chicago outfit needed new sources of revenue. And in that era, milk was big business. Milk distribution in Chicago was messy. Quality varied wildly. Safety regulations were weak. Spoiled milk could make people sick and even kill children. This was decades before refrigeration was widespread in every home. Capone saw an opportunity. If he could control milk distribution, he could control a product every family needed every single day. And unlike alcohol, milk was legal. It was a chance to turn his empire into something that looked respectable. According to one version of the story, Capone bought into bottling plants. His brother Ralph, nicknamed Bottles because of his work in the beverage trade, helped lead the charge. They allegedly pushed for better labeling on milk, arguing that consumers deserved to know when it was bottled. The popular rumor is that Capone personally lobbied city officials to require expiration dates on milk bottles. Some say the motivation was business. If every bottle had to carry a date, only organized and reliable suppliers could meet the requirement. That would give Capone's operation the upper hand. Another version says the motivation was personal. The story goes that a member of Capone's family got sick from spoiled milk, and he wanted to make sure no other family had to suffer. For a man with a reputation for ruthlessness, this twist makes him strangely relatable. Even gangsters can be protective parents, uncles, or brothers. But here's where the myth runs into a wall. Historians say there is little direct evidence that Capone ever pushed for a milk date law himself. There are no surviving documents, no official records tying him to such legislation. At best, his involvement was indirect, part of a broader effort to get into the milk business and outcompete rivals. What is true is that Capone did invest in milk distribution in the early 1930s. Chicago newspapers reported on it at the time. And it is true that local officials started talking about dating milk bottles around the same era. Whether Capone caused that or just happened to benefit from it remains murky. Even if he did push for it, milk date labeling did not become a nationwide practice overnight. The movement for freshness labeling grew slowly, city by city, as consumer advocacy groups pushed for safer food. By the 1970s, labels on milk became common across the country. Eventually, the practice spread to almost every perishable item on store shelves. Today, nearly every milk jug carries a date, but here is the twist. There is still no single federal law requiring it. States set their own rules. Some labels mean best if used by, others mean sell by, others mean use by. The result is confusion that still leads millions of Americans to throw away perfectly good milk every year. So what do we make of Al Capone's place in this story? He probably did not invent milk expiration dates as the internet likes to claim. But his interest in milk during the 1930s shows how even a crime boss could shape public conversation about safety and quality. Sometimes a villain can accidentally become a force for progress. The story of Capone and milk is fascinating because it humanizes a man we often see as a caricature of crime. It reminds us that history is full of moments where personal motives and public benefit overlap. Maybe he wanted to protect a family member. Maybe he wanted to protect his profit. Either way, the result may have been a safer product for ordinary families. It also reminds us that change often comes from unexpected places. Who would think that the same man linked to gang wars and the St. Valentine's Day massacre might also be linked, however loosely, to something as domestic as milk safety? And whether Capone pushed the idea or not, The fact that people believe this story tells us something about our fascination with him. We want our villains to have surprising moments of softness. We want to believe that even the most feared men had a side that cared about kids drinking safe milk. This is why the story has lasted. It is why every few years it pops back up on social media, in books, in trivia nights. Because we love strange contrasts. We love imagining the gangster who once ruled Chicago turning his attention to your breakfast table. Of course, the real hero of expiration dates is not one person, but decades of advocacy. Scientists, public health officials, and consumer groups all pushed to make food safer. Capone may have played a small role, or none at all. But the world still ended up with a system that helps us know when our milk is fresh. The lesson here is simple. Sometimes the push for change comes from the most unlikely of sources. Sometimes legends grow bigger than the facts, but they keep us asking questions about where our everyday habits come from. And sometimes, even a story about a gangster and a bottle of milk can teach us that progress can start anywhere. So the next time you check the date before pouring a glass, think about the strange journey that got us here. From mobsters and milk routes to modern supermarkets, from whispered deals in back rooms to printed numbers on cartons. And ask yourself how many more of our daily routines carry stories that are just as surprising. If this story made you see history a little differently, like this video before your milk goes bad, share it with a friend who loves strange facts, and subscribe for more tales where crime, culture, and the little things in life collide.